Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, and welcome to week 6, series 3.
Series 3, yeah. And this is John.
And this is Sally. And together we are BeHealthyChurch.
Yeah, and we're not health professionals, so please do not stop taking any medication without consulting your GP.
Great stuff. And so we have some great stuffs tonight. Stuffs?
Videos,
material. We're going to share a little bit with you what it's all about. And
it's all about real life, real faith, real friends, and real food.
Absolutely. And this is week number 6, and you are so welcome. Let's get moving. Just before we do that, let's have a testimony of someone that has already done the course, or perhaps they're partway through it. Let's see who we've got this week.
So I've been doing BeHealthyChurch because my parents have been hosting me while I've been home. I got really sick with pneumonia, and I've lost quite a bit of weight, and I got better faster than what the doctor said that I would, which was really good. The diet's really good because you can eat meat, you can eat fish, you can have vegetables, full fat milk, so I highly recommend it.
I love people's stories.
Yeah, they're the best bit, really, aren't they?
Everyone is a winner.
Yeah.
And
such good results.
Yeah, and we are probably more amazed than you are. Because when this all started, we didn't see it as being such a transformation in people's lives.
No, it started with just doing it for ourselves, really, didn't it?
And then I had it laid on my heart that I needed to do something to get it out as a message for everyone. So 1 Corinthians 6:12 says this:
everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. Food for the stomach, and the stomach for food.
Yeah, and
real food.
How he made it. That's what we like to look at. And it starts with me. It might be good for me. Is it good for me? The trouble is, we've been listening to health professionals for years who have told us that certain things are good for us. And now
the tide is turning a little bit.
Yes. Why? Because the nation is under attack, not only from coronavirus, but from type 2 diabetes and lots of other illnesses. So it starts with me. And we are going to have a look at a guy that is actually quite you've probably seen him on TV.
Dr. Rangan Chatterjee.
I'm sure you said that better than I did. But he's a really good advocate for eating. And you may have seen him if you've watched the video, which we recommended right at the very beginning, the magic pill. I think he featured in that. And I think he said something like, what every doctor should do when you walk into your surgery is ask the question, what are you eating?
Yeah, because we are what we eat.
Exactly. And my little thing that I put up to it, should the church be a fence at the top of the hill or an ambulance at the bottom? And what I mean by that is we should be telling people what is good, not just rescuing them when they're sick and praying for them to get better.
Yeah. Well, prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely. So he says that he can make these diseases disappear.
Well, let's have a listen to him.
Yeah, let's have a listen to see what he has to say.
I can make diseases disappear. To be more precise, I can make chronic diseases disappear. You see, chronic diseases are the long-term conditions like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, or even dementia. And there's 15 million people in England who have already been diagnosed with a chronic condition. So that means looking out amongst you now, there's probably about 250 people in here who have one of these long-term conditions. Just one of these alone, type 2 diabetes, is costing the UK £20 billion every single year. And I'm standing here before you saying, I can make these diseases disappear. See, I'm not a magician. I'm what the Americans call an MD. That's not a magical doctor. That's a medical doctor, or what I call a mere doctor. You see, the reason I can make diseases disappear is because diseases are just an illusion. Diseases are not real. In fact, diseases don't really exist. At least not in the way that we think they do. So 15 years ago, I qualified for medical school, and I was ready. I was full of enthusiasm, full of passion, ready to go out and help people. But I always felt that there was something missing. I started off as a specialist. I moved from being a specialist to becoming a generalist, or a GP. And I always got this nagging sense that I was just managing disease or simply suppressing people's symptoms. And then, just 5.5 years ago, came the turning point for me. You see, 5.5 years ago, my son nearly died. My wife and I, we were on holiday in France, and with our little baby boy, and she called out to me, said he's not moving. So I rushed there, and he was lifeless. I thought he was choking. So I picked him up, I tried to clear his airway. Nothing happened, and I froze. See, she called out to me, my wife said, come on, we've got to get to hospital. So we rushed there, and we were worried because when we got there, he still wasn't moving. The doctors were worried because they didn't know what was happening. That night, he had 2 lumbar punctures because they thought he might have meningitis. And he stayed in a foreign hospital for 3 days. And what actually transpired was my son had a low level of calcium in his blood that was caused by a low level of vitamin D. My son nearly died from a preventable vitamin deficiency, and his father, a doctor, knew nothing about it. You see, as a parent, that is a harrowing experience. That never leaves you. But I was a doctor. I was his dad. And the guilt that stayed with me and is still here today, that changes you. So I started reading. I started reading about this vitamin deficiency. And as I started reading, I started to learn a lot of science that I did not learn at medical school. A lot of science that I thought, hey, this makes a lot of sense to me. So I started applying this science. I started applying it, first of all, with my son, and I saw the amazing benefits. So then I started applying it with my patients. And do you know what happened? People started getting better. Really better. You see, I learned how to resolve the root cause of their problems rather than simply suppressing their symptoms. Just over a year ago, I had the opportunity to make a series of documentaries for BBC One where I got to showcase this style of medicine. I'm going to tell you about one of the patients, a 35-year-old Dottie. Lovely, lovely lady, but she was struggling with her health. Weight problems, joint problems, sleep problems. See, despite Dottie's best efforts, Dottie was unable to make any sustainable changes. So I went into Dottie's house, and in the first week I did some blood tests, and I diagnosed her with type 2 diabetes. 6 weeks later, when I left Dottie's house, she no longer had type 2 diabetes. You see, her disease had disappeared. So health exists on a continuum, okay? At the top right, we've got disease, and at the bottom left, we've got optimal health. And we are always moving up and down that continuum. Take Christmas, New Year, for example, right? We drink too much, we eat too much, we stay up late. We probably start to move up that curve. But if we recalibrate in January and February, we start to move back down it again. We get involved in medicine and give you a diagnosis of a chronic disease here. But things have been starting to go wrong back here. See, when I met Dottie, she was up here. She had a disease. You see, you can think of it a little bit like a fire that's been burning in Dottie's body for years. It's getting bigger till it's finally raging out of control. At that point, I can say, hey, Dottie, you have a disease. And I told her that, you do have a disease. But what caused it in the first place? So the thing we have to understand is that acute disease and chronic disease are two different things. Acute disease is something we're pretty good at doctors. We're good at this. It's quite simple, okay? You have something like a pneumonia. That's a severe lung infection. So in your lung, you have the overgrowth of some bugs, typically a bacteria. We identify the bacteria, we give you a treatment, typically an antibiotic, and it kills the bacteria. The bacteria dies, and hey presto, you no longer have your pneumonia. The problem is we apply that same thinking to chronic disease, and it simply doesn't work, because chronic disease doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up with chronic disease one day, and there's many different causes of chronic disease. By the time we give you that diagnosis, things have been going wrong for a long, long time. So when I met Dottie, and she had her diagnosis, her blood sugar was out of control, right? Because that's what people say. Many people say that type 2 diabetes is a blood sugar problem. But they're missing the point. There is a problem with blood sugar in type 2 diabetes. But type 2 diabetes is not a blood sugar problem. The blood sugar is the symptom, it's not the cause. If we only treat symptoms, we'll never get rid of the disease. So when I met Dottie, I said, Dottie, you've got a problem with your blood sugar. Dottie, for the last few years, your body is becoming more and more intolerant to certain foods. At the moment, Dottie, your body does not tolerate refined or processed carbs or sugar at all. So you've got to cut them out. So what does that do? Well, it stops putting fuel on Dottie's raging fire. But then we've got to work out, well, what started the fire in the first place? And what was the fuel that caused it to burn for so long? In most cases of type 2 diabetes, this is something called insulin resistance. Now, insulin is a very important hormone, and one of its key functions is to keep your blood sugar tightly controlled in your body. So, let's say you're at the bottom left in optimal health, like all of us in here. And you have a breakfast of, say, a sugary bowl of cereal. What happens is your blood sugar goes up, but your body releases a little bit of insulin, and it comes back down to normal. As you move up that curve, you are becoming more and more insulin resistant. That means you need more and more insulin to do the same job. And for all those years, before you get anywhere near a diagnosis, that raised level of insulin is causing you a lot of problems. You can think of it a little bit like alcohol. The very first time you have a drink, what happens? Say you have a glass of wine, 1 or 2 sips, maybe half a glass. You feel tipsy. You feel a little bit drunk. And as you become a more seasoned and accustomed drinker, you need more and more alcohol to have the same effect. So that's what's going on with insulin. You need more and more insulin to have the same effect, but that insulin itself is problematic. And when the insulin can no longer keep your sugar under control, at that point, we say, oh, you've got a disease. At that point, you have type 2 diabetes. So what causes this insulin resistance that then causes type 2 diabetes? Well, there's many different things. It could be your diet. It could be that your diet for the last 10 years has been full of processed junk food. That could be a cause. But what if it's something else? What if it's the fact that you are chronically stressed? Work stress, emotional stress, perceived stress. For me, just seeing my email inbox sometimes, that's a stress. See, that raises levels of cortisol in your body. And cortisol, when it's up, raises your sugar, which causes insulin resistance. What if it's something else? What if it's the fact that you have been sleep deprived because you are a shift worker? See, in some people, one night's sleep deprivation can give you as much insulin resistance as 6 months on a junk food diet? What if it's the fact that as you're getting older, you're losing muscle mass? That causes insulin resistance. Or what if it's something to do with something we call your microbiome? See, inside our body, we have trillions of bugs living there. And the balance of those bugs is critical for our overall health. If you have a disruption to that balance, you can get the overgrowth of certain bacteria. And on their jacket, these bacteria have something called lipopolysaccharide, or LPS. And what that does is when it gets in your blood, it causes insulin resistance. You see, the problem is there are many different causes of insulin resistance. And if we don't address the causes for that particular patient, we will never get rid of the disease. That's what I did with Dottie, and that's why 6 weeks after I met her, she no longer had a disease. What about something else, completely unrelated? What about depression? You see, 1 in 5 people are going to get depression at some point in their lives. So what is depression? There's no blood test for depression. There's no scan for depression. Depression is simply the name that we give to a collection of symptoms. But what causes the depression? Well, we know that many cases of depression are associated with something called inflammation. Now, this isn't the same inflammation as if you trip up, you sprain your ankle, it gets red, it gets swollen, it gets hot for a few days. But this is entirely different. This is chronic inflammation. This happens when your body thinks it is under constant attack. Now, King's College London, 3 weeks ago, published a study on this. This is current, up-to-date stuff. Patients with depression, if they had high levels of inflammation in their body, they did not respond to antidepressants. If you take a step back, it sort of makes sense, doesn't it? Because an antidepressant is designed to raise the level of a chemical in your brain. But what if the cause of your depression is actually coming from your body and the inflammation that's in your body? Surely it makes more sense to address that. See, what causes this inflammation? Well, your diet plays a part in that. Your stress levels play a part. Chronic sleep deprivation, physical inactivity, a lack of exposure to the sun, which gives you vitamin D, disruptions in the gut microbiome. See, there are many different things. If we do not address the cause, we'll never get rid of diseases. Diseases are the symptom. What about something else? What about Alzheimer's disease? See, we're all living longer, aren't we? But we're scared. We're scared that as we live longer and as we live older, we may have to live with the devastating consequences of things like Alzheimer's. I'm sure many of us in here have experienced that ourselves, with our family. It's a heart-wrenching condition. And we, the doctors, we're scrambling around, aren't we, trying to find the cure. Well, there's a professor in San Francisco, Professor Bredesen, who's actually demonstrating that you can cure dementia. He's showing that you can reverse cognitive decline in his patients with dementia. And how is he doing that? Well, one thing he's not doing is he's not saying, well, all these patients in my office have got dementia, Alzheimer's disease. What is the cure? No, he's going the other way. He's saying, with all these patients, let's say 10 patients in my office, he's trying to work out what have been the triggers for the last 20 years that have ended up with this patient expressing themselves as dementia. And he identifies them and he corrects every single one of them. And when he does that, guess what's happening? They are reversing their symptoms. They are no longer being classified as having dementia. It's a brand new way of looking at disease. It's looking at what is causing this disease in this individual patient. It's totally different. So what factors is he looking at? Well, he's looking at their diet. He's looking at their stress levels, their sleep quality, their physical activity levels, their exposure to environmental toxins, etc., etc., etc. Is this starting to sound a little bit familiar? See, what if all these seemingly separate diseases actually at their core share common root causes. See, we need to update our thinking. Our genetics are not our destiny. Our genes load the gun, but it's our environment that pulls the trigger. All these factors here, these are the factors that basically interact with your genes and determine how your genes are expressed. Whether you are in optimal health, whether you have a disease, or whether you are somewhere in between. Collectively, as a society, I genuinely believe we can do better, and we have to do better. Type 2 diabetes alone is costing us £20 billion a year. Just a 1% saving there would be £200 million. And I think we can do way better than 1%. In the United States today, the new generation of kids that are born have a lower life expectancy than the generation before them. Is this evolution, or is this devolution? You see, we need to evolve the way that we practice medicine. We need the medicine of etiology, not symptomatology. The medicine that asks why, not only tells you what. This is personalized medicine. This is precision medicine. This is progressive medicine. And actually, if you take a step back, this is preventative medicine in its purest form. We have got to stop applying 20th century thinking to 21st century problems. We need to take back control, empower ourselves, and re-educate ourselves away from our fear of disease and right back down the curve to optimal health. Because if we do, together, I genuinely believe that we can change not only our health, not only the health of our communities, but maybe, just maybe, we could start to change the health of the entire world. Thank you.
I love that, and I love it that it's a TEDx talk. It's 20 minutes, really good teaching,
Yeah.
and that what he says is so true. And we need to see it happen, and we need to see it happen across doctors and healthcare providers. And it's interesting, I was just reading before we started recording this program, that the government's new strategy on healthcare, some of it is really good. And they've actually said, while guidelines might say this, we actually believe this. Well, they wrote the guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, enough of that.
Watch this space.
I shall get upset in a minute. Psalm 103:2 says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases." And you know, the fact is, perhaps God heals our diseases if we eat the right food.
Yeah, we have to play our part as well.
Yeah, yeah. You can't expect to put poison in and get perfection out.
No.
It doesn't work.
No. And Exodus 15:26 says, "If you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God and do that which is right in his eyes and give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer."
You could read that another way, couldn't you? If you eat right, you don't get sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And if you don't eat right, you will get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the truths that we have seen in all this stuff that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this version in the Message. You know, I said we have a duty because sharing this with other people. You know, if we just kept it to ourselves,
yeah,
all those people that have been helped so far
mm-hmm.
wouldn't have been helped.
No, and there's a lot of people been helped.
Yeah,
yeah,
even ones we don't know of.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I come across people that have watched it and said, told me about it, and I didn't know that they were watching.
No.
So hello to you if you're watching. I don't know.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So this is great little bit from the Message. Some of you were sick because you lived a bad life. Your body's feeling the effects of your sin. You couldn't stand the sight of food. So miserable, you thought you'd be better off dead. Then you called out to God. in your desperate condition. He got you out in the nick of time. He spoke the word that healed you, that pulled you back from the brink of death. So thank God for his marvelous love, for his miracle mercy to the children he loves. Offer thanksgiving sacrifices. Tell the world what he has done.
Sing it out.
Sing it out.
Well, we're not going to sing, but
we could. We're not going to. No, we're not going to. So, you know, it is great when you start feeling better about yourself and you can tell other people. You do want to tell other people. You know, you start losing weight. You feel better about yourself. You feel better about everything around you. And so, you know, I encourage you to tell other people. Tell other people what it's done for you. Tell them how you feel, and share.
Yeah, because they can probably look at you and think, "Gosh, they look good."
Yeah.
And how does that happen?
How does it work? Well, we looked last week at Dr. Becky. She gave us some common mistakes of low carb eating. And because we don't just talk about low carb, we've looked at different diets, but if you cut the carb, you need to increase the fat. And she's going to give us some 5 common mistakes. And this is part 2. I think we saw
part 1 last week.
So let's see what Dr. Becky has to say.
When you reduce the number of carbs you eat, you switch your metabolism from being a good sugar burner to being a good fat burner. But that switch does not happen overnight. If you are not prepared for the transition or make eating mistakes, you can miss the mark and not get the progress. In this video, I share 5 common mistakes with low-carb dieting. If you want to lose weight, you want your body to burn fat, not sugar. And in part 1 of this series, I explained how a low-carb diet helps your body get into that state. However, your body will not make this metabolic switch if you are making one of these mistakes. First of all, I see a lot of people cut down on the number of carbohydrates that they are eating without bumping up their intake of healthy fats. That leads to no energy and cravings that can make life pretty miserable. And here's why this is a problem. You get your energy from calories. 3 nutrients supply the majority of calories, and they are carbs, fats, and protein. Your body likes to save protein for jobs like building and repair, so when it comes to making energy, it usually passes on protein and prefers to burn carbs and fats. If you reduce your intake of carbs and also eat a low-fat diet, you have robbed your body of both sources of energy. So now some of you are thinking that that certainly can't be true because you are carrying around tens of thousands of calories of body fat, right? So if you eat a low-carb and low-fat diet, your body will just use body fat. However, the problem with that approach is that your body must learn how to become a better fat burner. And the way you train it to do that is by eating fat. Your cells have powerhouses called mitochondria that can take in either sugars or free fatty acids and convert them to ATP, which is the energy currency of your body. Those conversions require different pathways and enzymes. As you reduce carbs and increase dietary fat, your mitochondria become more efficient at burning the free fatty acids and you become a better fat burner. Even if you are eating enough fat and keeping carbs low, this transition to becoming a good fat burner will take some time. And depending on how much of a change you are making in your diet, you may be in for some rough days where you feel low on energy and you crave carbs as your body tries to force you to give it that easy energy source. The trap is that eating a carbohydrate will make you feel better very quickly. So for instance, you've been on a low-carb diet for 2 days and you're feeling low on energy, and in comes your coworker with a tray full of cupcakes. If you eat one, you will have a boost in energy, but you will take a step backward in your transition toward becoming a better fat burner. Sugar will always be an energy source for your body, and that's certainly not a bad thing. You want to live in a hybrid body that can easily shift between burning carbs and burning fat. But we're not born hybrids. We are born with a good sugar burning engine, so you have to train your body to become a good fat burner, and that is done by staying away from carbs strictly for at least a few weeks, while at the same time boosting your fat intake. Sometimes carbohydrates are not as easy to identify as a plate full of cupcakes. There are hidden sugars in a lot of products, including low-fat yogurt, which can have as much sugar as a standard size Hershey bar, and salad dressing, which can have sugar or high fructose corn syrup listed as the first ingredient, meaning it is the most plentiful ingredient. My rule of thumb is that sugar, if it is one of the top 3 ingredients, don't eat that product. Other items that we forget have carbohydrates in them include soda, sweet tea, flavored coffee drinks, juice, steak sauce, regular peanut butter. So you'll want to stay away from those foods as well. Food manufacturers stay on top of demand, and they are meeting the demand for low-carb options in some deceptive ways, in my opinion. For instance, bread is bread regardless if it comes in the form of a bun, a flatbread, or a tortilla. You know, a tortilla is nice and thin, so you might be led to believe that it has fewer carbs. That's not necessarily the truth. For instance, at Subway restaurants, a 6-inch roast beef sandwich on a wheat bun will cost you 45 grams of carbohydrates, which is a lot, but it will not be as much as if you eat a spinach wrap, which has 53 carbohydrates. I can say the same for thin crust pizza or foods that we easily recognize as carbs like pasta. While you can argue that pasta made out of things like whole wheat or soybeans have some nutritional advantage over flour pasta, it is still pasta and it is still loaded with carbs. There is also confusion over whether you should count total or net carbs, and I did an entire video on this topic that I will point to. But basically, if you elect to count net carbs, you need to subtract the fiber and sugar alcohols in the food from the total carb count. Food manufacturers can put those additives into food to artificially lower the net carb count. So if you are counting net carbs and not total carbs, there is a chance that you are getting more carbohydrates than you had bargained for. I recommend counting total carbs. It's straightforward and simple. And lastly, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail comes into practice when you are switching to a low-carb diet. We do not live in a society that caters to a low-carb lifestyle. So if you do not know what you are going to eat for the day, and then you walk out the door to go to work, you are venturing into a sea of temptation. Take some time to identify restaurants with low-carb friendly meals and pack a low-carb snack. Simply raw almonds can act as an emergency snack to get you through unexpected situations, and you will be much happier with your results when you have those things with you.
Okay, and you know we don't say you only have to watch us on this thing. Find her YouTube channel, have a look at some of the stuff. Really good.
Yeah,
and
she's always posting new YouTube clips.
Yeah,
10 minutes long, just while you grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah. And she is a Christian lady as well, and her and her husband do some stuff as well. Really good stuff, and excellent. So thank you. So
real food for thought.
Yeah,
something to ponder.
Yeah, real food for thought. Not just food for thought, but real food for thought.
Yeah. So I think we've said before, haven't we? It's good to have a goal.
Absolutely.
So where do you see yourself in 3 to 6 months' time?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how you might be feeling when you can put on those jeans or run around the park?
Yeah. We had someone the other day who had said they'd put on a dress they hadn't worn for several years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And looked
lovely.
Looked longingly at the husband to say, perhaps we need to do a bit of clothes shopping. Well, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
And but we have to think that before we can get there, don't we?
Yeah, you've got to picture yourself.
Yeah. What will it be like to lose 2.5 stone?
If you don't have a vision or a goal, you'll never get there.
No.
And give up before you start.
Yeah, this couple that had done the course, they've now lost over 2.5 stone each. And that's 5 stone.
Really fit.
That's 5 stone not going in and out that house every day, which is great stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
we'll catch their testimony another week, I think.
Yeah. So what does it look like? Imagine and start getting towards that goal.
Write it down too.
Yeah. Now, this will be an interesting. What is sugar? You know, sugar has so many names, and we're not going to read through every name, but if you look at that list, there are a lot of names of sugar.
Honey is the one because people think that it's a natural.
It is natural. Isn't it?
Well, it is natural.
Yeah, but
it's still sugar.
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's the point.
Pure sugar.
Yeah, and when it goes into your body doesn't say, "Oh, this is honey. This has come from a bee. Let's treat this different to all other sugar," because actually, you can say sugar is natural.
Yeah, because it's
grown.
It's grown from a plant, isn't it?
Yeah,
sugar beet.
And what do they feed bees on all winter?
What do they feed bees on?
Yeah, do you know?
Nectar.
Sugar. They feed them on sugar because they take away their honey, which is their source of food for the winter. So, but all those things, dextrose, you look on a list of ingredients, and because it doesn't say sugar, you think, oh, it's all right, I can eat it. But if it says maple syrup, fructose, molasses, you know, any of those on the list, then avoid it.
Especially if it ends in an OSE.
Yeah.
And O's.
Yeah. So, you know, there are just some of the things. Now, you can say, but milk has lactose in it.
Yeah.
Milk is a natural source, low sugar, and because of all the other things that are in milk, it is good for you. And people talk about being intolerant to milk or dairy. The probability, and this is a probability, is that it isn't because 30 or 40 years ago, people didn't have these intolerances. It isn't probably the natural milk that is causing you the problem. It's because your arteries and your insides is probably all messed up with the amount of sugar that you've been eating in processed food. And lots of people find when they eat real food, real milk, that problems disappear.
That's why it's a good idea to do a 5-day
detox.
The phase 1 that we talk about.
Yeah. It's a good start.
So it clears all the impurities out, and then you can start again.
And you know, some people feel a little bit rough in those 5 days, and
but it is only 5 days,
and it passes.
Yeah.
Some people don't even have any effects at all.
No.
So look out for things. Learn how to read the labels, but remember that labels that show that it says high fat, all right, in red, it might not be bad for you if you're not eating carbohydrates. So the labels...
if it's red in fat and sugar, and avoid
then it is bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, refined carbs, fruit juices, except for lemon and lime. You know, most fruit juices require equipment. But even if they don't require equipment, even if you've got an orange and squeeze the juice out, all right? If you had the juice of 3 oranges, you're drinking a can of Coke or a good glass of Coke. Yeah. It's a lot of sugar. And especially even worse is when children have the fruit without the bits.
Yeah, the smooth juice.
Smooth juice, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's quite a difficult one to get around, isn't it? That fruit juices and fruit are full of sugar.
Yeah. I mean, have an orange. If you've got to have some fruit, have an orange, but not too many.
All kinds of flour are refined carbs, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also, you know, legume flour and bean flour. If they've been pulped into a flour, you can say, oh, it's not flour, but it is a flour, and we have to be careful. Even flours that
are low in carbs.
High fat flours.
Almond flour.
Yeah, not too much.
Coconut flour.
Yeah, you don't want to be eating too much of them.
No, if you're cooking with those, it's a one-off thing. Really.
Yeah, it's a treat.
Not a daily thing.
So, remember when we started, we used to make fake bread.
Fake bread, but that was with linseed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With eggs and fake bread and
eggy bread.
Eggy bread. It tasted disgusting. No, I mean, I didn't like it.
No, it helped. It helped me.
It helped you.
Yeah. I don't need bread now, but
no,
it did then.
Yeah. So instant refined grains include instant hot cereals, instant hot meals. You know, oatmeal, white rice, polished rice, instant rice. They're not good. No. You don't want to have them. They go straight. They spike your blood sugar straight away.
Yeah. And if you're going to have rice, you have whole grain and a very small portion.
Yeah. And you know the best way to have that is with a non-fat meal. And not a carby meal.
Yeah, so you're not mixing
fat
and carbs.
No.
Yeah.
So cornstarch, potato starch, modified starch. Even I was reading the other day, if you buy grated cheese, they coat
ready-made grated cheese.
Yeah, they coat it in potato starch to stop it sticking together. So you've got starch and fat, which you don't want.
Well, the lesson there is to read the labels, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and also
I had a look at that the other day in the shop, and it says it on the label.
Right, good to know that it says it. So, what's about this one then? Avocados.
Yeah, I read this the other day, and I'm not a great avocado fan. Do sometimes buy them, and these are things you can substitute, because avocado is a very good food to eat.
Although it's got
but it's got loads of nutrients in it. Yeah, and these I found are what you can have instead of half an avocado to give you a similar nutrients. Not exactly the same, but similar.
So nuts, and how many nuts are we talking about?
Well, I would say 10.
A handful.
Yeah, 10.
Just a few in a hand.
Yeah.
Not a bowlful.
No, not a bowlful. No. And the same with seeds, like a tablespoonful, I think. Yeah.
Now, olives, I love olives.
I don't like olives.
I can eat olives until...
I think you can probably eat as many olives if you want.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. 2 eggs.
Yeah, 2 eggs. And feta cheese. I mean, you can eat ordinary cheese as well, but that is if you're using it in the same way as an avocado.
Great.
Yeah.
So
pesto.
And they're all things that you can eat and are good for you. Good food. Yeah. Good fuel. Good food. Oh, she's going to tell us some of the things what we can eat now.
Yeah. So hopefully she reinforces what we just said.
Yeah. So we're going to listen to Dr. Becky, and she's going to tell us some of the things that we can eat low carb. And hope we didn't get it too wrong then.
So do I. You can tell us later.
Yeah.
Low-carb diets are becoming increasingly popular, but which foods are low in carbohydrates? I will quickly go through healthy low-carb food choices so you understand what you can eat on a low-carb diet. The best way for you to quickly classify whether a food is low-carb is to think about its source. Did it come from an animal or a plant? And that's significant because plants are the living organisms that make carbohydrates. If you remember learning about photosynthesis, that is the process that plants use to make carbohydrates from raw materials of sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. So all plant foods will contain carbs, but that doesn't rule them out of a healthy low-carb diet. You just need to pick the right ones. Most foods that come directly from animals contain only trace amounts of carbs. So let's start our low-carb food list with meats. Meats can come from any source, including beef, poultry, pork, lamb, venison, and bison. And the very versatile egg is a great addition to a low-carb diet and works great as a snack, meal, or a recipe ingredient. There are also products that come from meats that can count as low-carb foods, like bacon, pork rinds, beef jerky, and lunch meats. But as with any food, processing lowers the nutrient quality of the food. So you will be happiest with the overall quality of your diet if you limit processed meats and choose them wisely to avoid unhealthy ingredients, as well as hidden sugars, which will increase the carb count. Now, I am going to discuss more than 100 low-carb foods in this video. So if you would like the full list, you can download the list on my website, and I will leave some links here for where you can do that. Okay, let's continue. All varieties of fish and seafood, from wild-caught salmon and haddock to shrimp and scallops, can be enjoyed as part of a low-carb diet. Now, dairy products are the category of animal-based foods that you will want to pay attention to when counting carbs. And there are 2 reasons. First, dairy contains a natural sugar called lactose, and dairy foods are often sweetened, which can, of course, increase the carb count of the food. Now, while it doesn't apply 100% of the time, a general rule of thumb is that the higher a dairy food is in fat, the lower it will be in the milk sugar lactose. For instance, a 1/4 cup of heavy cream has about 1.5 grams of carbohydrates, whereas the same amount of fat-free skim milk has twice the carb grams. Fat also provides flavor, so full-fat dairy foods don't need to rely on added sugars and sweeteners like their low-fat counterparts. So the takeaway is read your labels and don't be afraid to choose the full-fat, low-sugar varieties when it comes to selecting dairy products. The dairy foods that can fit into a low-carb diet include full-fat yogurt, heavy cream, half and half, sour cream, and different varieties of cheese. But again, pay attention to the carb count of dairy foods. And we could round out our list of low-carb animal-based foods with cooking fats. Those that come from animals include butter, lard, and tallow. This also provides a perfect segue into plant-based low-carb foods because we get some oils from plants, including avocado oil, which is one of my favorites, as well as coconut oil and olive oil. And there are also oils classified as vegetable oils, such as soybean, sunflower, and canola oil. These oils fit on a low-carb list, but I do not use them due to their questionable health value. And if you want to know more about that, you can see my video on the best cooking oils. As I mentioned earlier, all whole plant foods contain carbs, but that doesn't rule them out of a healthy low-carb diet. You just need to pick wisely so that you're getting the vital nutrients from the plant foods without the excess carbs. So let's continue our list of low-carb plant foods, and I'm going to loosely list them from lowest carb content to highest. Coffee and tea come from coffee beans or tea leaves and contain only a trace amount of carb grams, making them a favorite drink of low-carb dieters. Herbs and spices also come from plants, so they contain trace amounts of carbohydrates, which is typically a non-issue because spices tend to be used in small quantities. But you do want to read the label of packaged spice blends that have other ingredients added in. For instance, this packet of taco seasoning mix contains 4 carbs per serving, and there's about 6 servings in here. Leafy green vegetables are a great low-carb choice, and many other non-starchy vegetables will fit into your low-carb lifestyle as well. A few of the more popular low-carb vegetables include asparagus, green beans, broccoli, cauliflower, mushrooms, and onions. Onions are a bit higher in carbs than the other vegetables that I mentioned, so that is something that you might want to pay attention to if you are following a very low-carb or keto-style diet. Nuts and seeds qualify as low-carb foods, but it pays to monitor how many you are eating because they are easy to overeat. The carb content will also vary with nuts, with pecans, walnuts, and macadamia nuts being lower in carbs than pistachios and cashews. Low-carb seeds are a great way to add crunch to a salad and can be blended into recipes to enhance their health value. I prefer to eat nuts and seeds raw to avoid the unhealthy oils that are typically used for roasting. Some favorites are chia, hemp, sunflower, and pumpkin seeds. With the popularity of low-carb diets, we are seeing a rise in popularity of butter derived from nuts and seeds. These natural kinds of butter have a place on our list, but they are even easier to overeat than nuts and seeds themselves. You have to read the label also to make sure that other ingredients, including sugar, were not added. We can also grind nuts and similar plant foods to give us flour, like almond flour or coconut flour for baking. And while these flours may have some health benefits when compared to white flour, anytime you refine a whole food, it changes the way your body handles it. So if you are using a low-carb diet as a way to lose weight, you will be happiest with your overall results if you avoid or limit all types of flour. All right, let's talk about fruit. There are many variety of fruit. Some make the low-carb list and others do not. Fruits that are generally regarded as being low-carb friendly include avocados, coconuts, lemons and limes, and olives. There are other fruit that are not super high in carbs that can fit into a low-carb diet for some people. These include apples, berries, cantaloupe, cherries, and grapefruit. However, if you are weight loss resistant, you may find that you need to limit your overall fruit intake. And I have a video on that topic if you would like to learn more about that. Lastly, I am also going to give an honorable mention to dark chocolate. But to qualify as low carb friendly, you'll want to look for brands that are at least 70% cacao with little or no added sugar. But just a side note, dark chocolate is an acquired taste. So the longer that you are on a low carb diet, the more your taste buds will adjust and you will be able to taste that more subtle sweetness that you get with dark chocolate. So you can see that there are a lot of nutrient-rich foods that you can choose from when you follow a low carb diet. I certainly threw a lot of foods at you in this short video. If you would like the complete downloadable list, you can grab a copy on my website, and I will link to that here in the video and down below in the description area. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Dr. Becky. Another good one, and learning all the time. And it's amazing. We have people that come and send us a text to say they watched the program and say, oh, I didn't realize that you had that before. And but we are learning all the time, all of us. And,
all of us are, yeah.
Yeah, and we take it on board and try and do something about it.
Oh, this slide comes up quite often, John, doesn't it?
Well, it does. Well, it does to us, but I don't expect it does every week. It's been up a couple of weeks.
It's a reminder, isn't it?
Yeah. Which one are you in?
No, we're not going to be healed if we don't change our lifestyle.
No. Yeah, listen, God can do miracles. I don't dispute that. But it is about us making a difference and saying, no, I'm going to do this. I am going to do it. Why should the National Health Service or anyone else keep paying out money to put us right when we keep putting diesel in our petrol car?
No, exactly.
So, we need to get it sorted, put the right thing in, and we get the right things out.
Well, this is a recap as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
What a high carb diet does. Spikes the blood sugar, then you get increased insulin, and then you store the fat, because the insulin is the fat storing hormone.
Yep. And
then your blood sugar goes low again because it goes up and down quickly, and then you want to eat some more carbs, and so it goes on.
Vicious circle. Yeah. I watch people like it every day.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other side of the slide. We've got low carb intake, low blood sugar, decreased insulin. You're going to burn fat instead of storing it. You're stable blood sugar. You don't get any, what was that? Oh, I've got a hype because I've had no sugar in the last. So decreased cravings, sustained energy. It's just the perfect way to live.
Yeah. And it is good if you can get this knowledge in your head.
Yeah.
Because this is the science, isn't it?
It is just getting that understanding. Because when we understood, as we understood, and we're still understanding, it makes sense.
Yeah. Because it takes years and years and years to train to be a doctor, doesn't it?
Yes.
So we're just learning one small part of it.
Yes. But it's interesting that doctors don't spend much time on nutrition.
No.
And which is a bit well, anyway.
Yeah.
So just a recap on the mistakes that can be made when we mess up.
Yeah, if we think we're not losing weight, it's good to have a think about what it actually is we don't feel like we should be feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we must up the fat intake when we reduce the carbs. Otherwise, you will
get hungry. And it
Yeah.
won't work.
And it won't work.
Someone on our Zoom, I think it was last week before, said that they'd done the low carb diet before. And initially my thought was, well, we do low carb, but we don't. We do low carb, high fat.
Yeah.
And there is a big difference, because if you just reduce the carbs, you get hungry and your body goes into shutdown mode. It wants the energy.
And then it starts storing the fat, doesn't it?
So
you going.
We need to increase fat intake, but cut carb intake. And do look at some of the books and the evidence behind all this.
Yeah.
And don't be tempted to eat carbs if you suddenly feel tired or get a craving. Have a few nuts.
Yep. Or a hard-boiled egg.
Yeah.
Because that will keep you going to the next meal.
A lump of cheese.
Yeah, a lump of cheese.
An olive.
Yeah, if you like olives. Yeah. Or half an avocado if you like avocado.
Ooh, that's quite a meal.
Yeah, but they're all things that,
Yes.
that will take away the hunger without piling on the carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then read the labels.
For hidden sugars.
Yeah.
In other words, you might not know the name of it.
No.
So double check. Don't be confused with what has more or less carbs. Bread is bread in whatever form.
Yeah.
I was looking at a cracker the other day. I do these sort of silly things.
Yeah. A cream cracker.
A cream cracker. And a cream cracker, a standard cream cracker, had 5 grams of carbohydrate in it.
What, in one cracker?
One cracker, which was equivalent to a quarter of a slice of white bread. No, it might have been 4.6 grams of carbs. So, basically a cube of sugar.
Yeah, and that's quite a lot of carbs in a cracker because you probably
That's
want
a cracker.
more than one.
Yeah, that's a cracker. Anyway.
Yeah, never mind.
Plan ahead. Plan ahead.
Yeah, know what's for tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise you will just reach for whatever's easy, which might not be the right thing.
Might not be the right thing.
No.
So a discussion for later. If you want to join us on Zoom, what is it going to feel like? We said this yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry, a little bit earlier on.
Yeah. It's a long day, John.
It's been a long day. When you know that actually you're losing weight, what are you going to feel like? And
yeah, that should keep you going. You should then,
encourage you.
Yeah, encourage you. Mm.
And
what are you doing about the rest of your family and friends? Yeah, do you stick to your healthy eating when you're with them?
Because that's a good challenge, because actually you can witness to them. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you always give in when you're with family and friends, they'll say, well, that's a fat old diet, that is. So it's a good challenge. But you can come to Zoom if you want to. Coffee and Weigh-In on Zoom only if you want to. You meet others on the journey. And again,
it's really good because at the moment we've got people from all over the country, haven't we?
Yes.
Zooming in.
Zoom.
Yeah.
And you can meet others on the journey. And if you haven't got a link to that, because we don't put it out on the social media here, if you haven't got a link, email me, jb@BeHealthyChurch.co.uk.
Yeah.
And we'd love to see you. We'd love your testimony sent in. Send anything in. Like this video on Facebook, share it.
Yeah.
And on YouTube and everywhere you see it.
So if anybody wants to know where to begin, you just point them to YouTube.
Yeah.
And they start at number 1.
Start at number 1 on this course. And watch that video. The
Magic Pill.
The Magic Pill. But so what do we do if we think we've failed?
Every day is a new day.
Every day is a new day.
Yeah, check your goal like we've just said. Yeah.
Write it down.
Yeah, make a note of what you're eating because you might be surprised that you're having too many snacks and
too many portions, too bigger portions.
Yeah. But remember, nobody fails. It's better to have tried and then have to start again than to have never tried.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember this, that we need to say this to ourselves, I can do all things through Christ
who strengthens me.
Absolutely. So folks, we thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this session. We will be back same time next week. And that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all, folks.
That's all, folks. Thank you. Be blessed. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Same time.
Yeah. Bye.
Be blessed. Bye-bye.
That's all, folks.